many of the obstacles that I faced, I think actually took me by surprise. I didn't anticipate them. They came out of the blue, and probably in the early years of my career, I don't know if I really knew how best to face them. And so, I mean, that's when your sort of intuition has to take charge. And what I found is that I don't know if I called it by name at the time, but oftentimes sought out people who knew how to do something that I did not know what to do, or how to do, or even where to begin. And sometimes that was like just reaching out to a friend or reaching out to maybe a parent or the person who sat in the cubicle next to me. But over time, it was really seeking out and really taking advantage of my network to
Mm-hmm.
find the people who could really help me make decisions or better understand the obstacle that I was confronting.
Hey, Summer Owens, and I'm back with another edition of So What Success Stories. And today I have the special pleasure to be speaking to my longtime friend, Jenny Turner Koltnow. It's a mouthful. Jenny Turner Koltnow. And Jenny is executive director of the Campbell Clinic Foundation. That's what she is now. But she has had a lot of different positions, including one with me, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But that was at the Memphis Grizzlies, and that was super exciting. But Jenny, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, first of all, Summer, I am super honored that you invited me to join you on your program. And I have to say, I have truly admired you and your rise and your resilience and your success over really my entire 22-year career in Memphis. So really
Thank
excited,
you.
and then love that you are in a position to mentor and teach others now too. So
That
anyway.
means so much to me, Jenny. Thank you. And you were one of my first mentors. I have to just go ahead and say that all the way back when I was in undergrad. So, but tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so as Summer said, I'm currently serving as executive director of the Campbell Clinic Foundation, which is the sort of philanthropic and educational arm of the Campbell Clinic. Been here about 7 months. So my time here has been relatively brief, but it's been incredibly fulfilling and exciting so far. But my background has been quite varied. I'm a Wisconsin native, moved to Tennessee for college and graduate school at Vanderbilt, and had an opportunity to take my dream job at the University of Memphis in 1999, where probably the highlight of the year was meeting Summer Owens.
Ah!
Um, and meeting my then boyfriend, now husband and father of my two children, in that first year. But over the course of my career, I've spent time in higher education, in sports, in nonprofit, in retail, in car parts, aftermarket, and now most recently healthcare. And the real thread among all those different opportunities is that I really believe in engagement. I really believe in connecting the dots. And as an endurance runner, I really feel like I can stay the course and focus so that I can help organizations and individuals succeed.
I think that's awesome. And Jenny, I forgot you were a runner. I haven't seen
Mm-hmm.
you or talked to you in so long, but yeah, I totally forgot you were a runner. That's so cool. And yeah, your career has been beautiful to follow, and I'm really honored that I was able to be a part of it in the very beginning. And then we had the privilege of working together at the Memphis Grizzlies to start the team.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Unbelievably over 20 years ago. Oh, but that was
Amazing.
such a fun time to be there, and it was such an honor to do it with cool people like you, and I'm just so glad that we're still connected. And I
Thank
can't wait to hear a little bit more about your story because I've been following you and your boys, and I can't believe how big they are now.
you.
But I've been following you in your career and your transitions, and so I'm really excited to for you to share your story. So in this program, I have what I call the So What Success System. And that's when people can learn how to overcome obstacles, eliminate excuses, and calculate choices. I believe they can achieve what I call So What Success. And that is success in spite of any obstacles that they face. And Jenny, yeah, you're a So What Success story because I've seen a lot of your journey and I'm super excited for you to share it. So first, share with us of some of the obstacles that you've had to overcome and maybe how you've overcome those obstacles in your life to get to where you are today.
Yeah. So I think that many of the obstacles that I faced, I think actually took me by surprise. I didn't anticipate them. They came out of the blue, and probably in the early years of my career, I don't know if I really knew how best to face them. And so, I mean, that's when your sort of intuition has to take charge. And what I found is that I don't know if I called it by name at the time, but oftentimes sought out people who knew how to do something that I did not know what to do, or how to do, or even where to begin. And sometimes that was like just reaching out to a friend or reaching out to maybe a parent or the person who sat in the cubicle next to me. But over time, it was really seeking out and really taking advantage of my network to find the people who could really help me make decisions or better understand the obstacle that I was confronting.
Sure.
And I will say, there's a certain, I think over time, again, even though I don't know if I could really name it early on, that sort of connecting the dots, that I didn't have to have all the skills myself. I didn't know how to solve it, but I needed to find others who could help me solve it, or at least help me talk it out, so that I could achieve the ends I wanted to achieve in a reasonable period of time, or change course if that's what was going to result in a better outcome.
Sure. Well, so I've like I said, I've watched you do your journey, and I've admired it because I haven't made as many changes in in my career, and I think that's really, really cool. And I've seen you grow and your family grow, and I've seen you deal with some of those obstacles. And I'm thinking about some specific ones that I was there with you at the Grizzlies as we grew as a team, right?
Yeah.
So the second part of the So What Success system, though, is eliminating excuses. And so we all have challenges, we all have different obstacles, and we all can make excuses for not overcoming those. What are some excuses that maybe you've made or that you could have made that could have held you back, and how did you eliminate those?
That's a great question. And I think part of it is over time becoming more self-aware, and doing the work to figure out what are actual obstacles or what are real challenges, and then what are things that are just in my mind, where
Yes.
my own mindset, perhaps, that my own kind of mental construct is standing in the way of pushing forward. One thing I think it's probably taken me longer than others to realize is that I can this is the tendency to like overanalyze, to sort of overthink it, and to whereas sometimes you just need to do it, you just need to go. And there's this little voice in my head, it's usually my husband's voice, where sometimes like done is better than perfect.
I say that all the time, Jenny.
Well, and when you're a busy person, you're trying to balance the demands of family and work and your own health and well-being, you kind of have to say, let's just get her done.
Yep.
And sometimes, there are mornings, I would love to be able to do a 6-mile run every single morning. But there are some times where I just get a 3 or 4 mile in, and I just call it my get her done run, because at least I got out there that day. I might think, oh God, I have to raise $100,000 by the end of August, but at least I got 4 phone calls and 2 emails in today. So you just have to look at how you can make progress, because oftentimes those are the things you just need to get started to build the momentum to confront that thing that might seem initially daunting or overwhelming.
Right. And give yourself some grace, right?
Yeah. And then also it's just sort of, I think too, you have to figure out, like, why do I feel this way? Like, why does this feel so hard? And sometimes it's because you're so tired.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's because something else, like the need of a family member or a staff member, is a more immediate priority. So you
Hmm.
have to sort of get to the heart of like, why is this making me feel so sort of paralyzed, and confront that thing so that you can move on and do what you need to do.
I think that's really good. And I think that's something we definitely don't do enough of, is to think about why. Why do I feel this way? I think
Mhm.
if we can do that, then we can probably move forward to the next part of the SOA success system, which is calculating choices, right? And make some choices to move forward. Talk about some of the calculated choices that you've had to make.
So, I mean, I guess there have been, countless calculated choices.
Yeah.
I mean, I will say, so just, looking kind of longitudinally over my career, I went to graduate school to get a master's in higher education administration. And I took the position at the University of Memphis in 1999, in student activities with the long-term goal of being a dean of students, or maybe, I don't know, maybe run a student affairs division at at a college or university. Um, I realized early on, like, that was not a career fit. Like, working on a campus was not where I wanted to be. Nothing wrong with campus life and so forth, but I really felt like I wanted to be out in the community. So I think I made a calculated choice to find something different. But I will tell you, and as any of my family or friends at the time would tell you, the time between leaving the University of Memphis and then ultimately joining the Memphis Grizzlies 1 year later, which PS did not exist when I made that first
Right.
calculated resignation, um, was really rocky.
Sure.
People thought I lost my mind. And at one point, I was working as a glorified admin assistant for a regional office of an energy company in Denver, Colorado. And I think all of them were scratching their heads like, why is this double Vanderbilt grad, up making copies and replacing the water in the water cooler for us? Like, what's the deal? So they kind of took me under their wing. And when I ultimately decided to move back to Memphis, they really stood behind me.
Oh,
But I think their encouragement and their confidence in me gave me the wherewithal to keep pushing for something that would be more community minded. And that's when, several months later, I had, little jobs along the way, but I really described that opportunity with the Memphis Grizzlies as an alignment of the stars, because I mean, it could not have come at a better time. And, at the time, I mean, there was no, who do you know? How can you network your way into a job? Everybody who was hiring was from Canada.
right. Exactly.
There was no like, well, I didn't know. They were just like, we need people who can do this work, who can just
Yeah.
get it done. So anyway, and then, obviously stayed there for 12 years. I think over time though, you start to realize, like, going back to the previous question, what are those things where I really get energy? What are those things where I feel really confident and competent? And I think that's what ultimately led us to create the Grizzlies Foundation into what it was, that we couldn't just be making grants. We had to be a proactive initiator of youth mentoring programs if we were going to get people to serve as volunteer mentors, and if we were going to grow programs in Memphis. We couldn't spend our way into success.
Sure.
Um,
And
but
that's
over
an important
time,
point, Jenny, because I remember now that you say that, and I'll first say I felt like the stars aligned for me too. And me getting with the Grizzlies, that was the year I graduated from college, and I couldn't find a job anywhere. And I felt like with your two Vanderbilt degrees, I'm like, well, I graduated magna cum laude. I'd done internships. I'm like, why can't I find a job? And then I think it was just meant for me to be at the Memphis Grizzlies when I was at the Memphis Grizzlies, probably similar
yeah.
to you. I didn't realize you were there 12 years. But I think it's important too to point out that you did start the Grizzlies Foundation, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
You
for the first few years, we were a pass-through funder. I mean, the board would give us funds and we would distribute them to any number of nonprofits. We would, do player appearances at some of those places. But in 2005, a year after the Grizzlies Foundation was formed, the board said, we want to focus on youth mentoring. Okay, say again, say more. What are we gonna do?
Right.
And there was no plan, there's no blueprint. So we had to figure it out. And I was a one-woman show. I brought on an intern about 6 months later, and began to build. But it's amazing kind of how things fell into place. But we sort of adopted the Memphis Mentoring Partnership. We began to learn how to train and provide technical assistance to existing youth mentoring programs. We started to form our own. We created a charter school, and then we ultimately started team mentoring. And then just as I was leaving, we were developing a sports-based youth mentoring program and to really support coaches as mentors. So it was very much we didn't know what we were doing, but we took great lessons from our peers who had done little bits of lots of things that we liked and thought, and that's when we began to kind of craft something that was uniquely our own. And then building the team, which has, gone on to have, international recognition. But more importantly, I think has been a real force in convincing the NBA as a whole to put a priority on youth mentoring. And so you see now, relationships and promotions and campaigns at the highest level of sport advocating for youth mentoring. And while I can't claim credit for any of that, I do think that the groundwork we laid in partnership with teams from Portland and Detroit and Boston and so forth helped them start to see, wait a minute, this is something that we should be doing on a much larger scale. So it was great. And I mean, we were flying high, into 2012, 2013. But going back to your question about calculated risks, I was at a point where like my whole career at that point was being defined by the sports team. And I knew that I had to take a step back and learn a different environment. I wanted to work on a bigger scale. I wanted to support organizations beyond the walls of Memphis. And that's when I made a move to go to AutoZone in the summer of 2013 to lead corporate communications and community relations there. And I really feel like while the Grizzlies were my education in philanthropy and branding and marketing, I feel like the AutoZone experience was absolutely my MBA. Like,
oh, really?
100%. The rigor and the intensity of a publicly traded Fortune 300 company was nothing that I had ever seen, but I was around such pros on everything from store operations to legal counsel, government affairs to, commercial marketing, that I was like, I didn't see myself there for the long term. But I'm so grateful that I had the experience I had.
That's really cool. When on a job, I guess you should learn something on every job that you're on, right? But
Yeah.
it's really cool because I look at the Grizzlies like that too. I feel like they were being there was a major training ground for me. and I think it's so cool when you're able to establish new programs and really, really make your imprint and use what you learn and apply it. I know you've used that from Memphis Grizzlies as well as AutoZone, and things that you've learned to apply it to this great career that you've had and this journey that you had. I think that's awesome. I think that is awesome.
And I tend to I think over the course of my career, if I don't know how to do something, I'm an experiential learner. I don't think I'm unique in that, but like I'm just going to throw myself into something and learn everything that I can. And I'm probably not going to read a book about the automotive aftermarket or about I don't know, the ins and the outs of like some complex hand surgery, but I know enough to be conversational and be an ambassador and help the organization think and move strategically forward.
Sure. I think that is awesome. So if you learn how to overcome obstacles, eliminate excuses, and calculate choices, like I said, I believe anyone can achieve so what success, because we all have obstacles and we all have challenges. It's about learning how to deal with them to create that so what success. But Jenny, how do you personally define success at this point in your career? How do you define success?
I really believe that success is a combination of setting aspirations for yourself, for inspiring and supporting others, and really finding what you love and what you love about it. I think and then in so doing, it's making room for the things that you value, and having a life and a lifestyle where those things can all find their space, and get the attention for you, enough attention for you to continue to grow and learn, and find joy and satisfaction in your
I
life.
love it. I love it. I love it. Okay, so Jenny, I have one last question for you.
Sure.
I have one last question. So what advice? Now, like I said, you were one of my early mentors. Back in, it's hard to believe,
That's a little scary.
back in 1999, and I've watched you throughout my entire career. So I know you're wise and you have lots of advice, but what's one piece of advice that you would give to someone who wants to find success, however they define it? It's maybe a student, it could be someone in their career, or somebody who wants to be an entrepreneur, just in general.
Yeah.
What advice would you give?
Yeah. I have to say, like, you've got to find your jam. Like, find something that you love, and it does not have to be your career, but it's something that like defines you outside of your career. You asked me earlier about being a runner. I didn't fall into running on purpose. It was really more or less like it was the least expensive sport or activity that I could pursue, because in those early years we weren't getting rich off of entry level jobs at university or at the Grizzlies. But no, and I mean, I was a multi-sport athlete, but running came easily, mostly because all I needed was a pair of shoes and a decent pair of socks. So for me, that's what it was for me. For other people, it might be dance, it might be singing your church choir, it might be sewing, it might be brewing beer. I don't care what it is, but making time for that. And if there's something that's getting in the way of it, whether it's an injury or time management, figure that stuff out. Like, you got to do it, because the more you put those things off, I mean, even having through kids and so forth, it might not be at the time that you wish it were, but just get it in there and it will come more and more naturally.
And I love it. I love it, to bring joy and peace and balance to your life. I definitely agree with it. I definitely agree. Well, Jenny, it has been a pleasure talking to you. And I'm so honored and grateful that after all these years, we are still connected.
I know. I love it. I love it.
I absolutely love it.
It's really, I have to say, I mean, I never thought in a million years that after growing up near Green Bay, Wisconsin, that I would spend my whole adult life in Memphis. But what's made it so rewarding is, more than anything, the people I've met along the way and the people with whom I've stayed connected, like you. And I think that's been, there's a kinship that you form where it's like, oh, we've known each other since 1999 or whatever. But I do think that, I mean, as another sort of word of wisdom, it's like, stay in touch with people. And it might be just LinkedIn, and it might be just, social or whatever. But I do think that you never know where those relationships will show up for you at an entirely different point in your life.
I think that's great advice, and I wholeheartedly agree with that. And this is the perfect example. It brings so much joy to me to stay connected to people, and again, since all the way back to 1999, and we are still connected. We haven't seen each other in person, I don't know when. It's been a long time.
Definitely,
but it doesn't right. but it feels like it, and because we have stayed connected. So I think that is wonderful advice. And Jenny, I just thank you for your time. I thank you.
Again, thanks for the honor.
Story. Yes, absolutely. And I look forward to doing lunch soon.
Sounds great.
All
All right.
right.
You take
Have
care,
a good one.
Summer.
Thank you,
Thank
Jenny.
you.
Bye.